Roland here. Recently, I met with a pregnancy center director whose center is located in a mostly Black and Hispanic urban community. And she told me about a tough challenge that she faces. As you know, church support is the mother's milk for most pregnancy centers. The problem is most of the pastors in her area are pro-choice. Her initial approach was to try to convince these pastors to be pro-life, but this wasn't working. I suggested she change her approach for future conversations, and what I told her might be helpful to you as well. But first, let's start with some context. You see, if a pastor is pro-choice, he is essentially saying that he believes that both an abortion and a birth are equally God-honoring. Now, I know the term pro-choice pastor is probably an oxymoron for you, like jumbo shrimp. But remember, you don't have to agree with him. You just need to understand him. The objective is to reach him because we are called to reach the lost, especially when they are shepherds. Rather than try to move him to a pro-life side, which he obviously will resist, I think it's better initially to try to challenge him to live up to his pro-choice worldview. You know, I've noticed that folks who are pro-choice tend to focus their entire financial, political, social, and spiritual support on just one side of the choice, access to abortion. And they do everything to make sure that a woman has access and that there are no barriers to block this access. And I suspect that this pastor is exactly the same. Eugenicists like Margaret Sanger are pro-abortion. They believe that abortion is the best or only option for some people. If one is truly pro-choice rather than pro-abortion, then they have just as much of an obligation to support a woman facing an unplanned pregnancy as a pro-life person does. For this reason, I say don't call our pro-choice opposition pro-abortion. It actually lets them off the hook. And if they're not pro-abortion, even if they don't agree with a woman's choice or believe it was the right choice or like how she came to that conclusion, they still have to support it. Once a woman makes the choice for life, the pro-choice person should become pro-life, right? And therein lies the opportunity to engage the pro-choice pastor. Here's what you do. First, start with Scripture. Remind him of James chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, which says, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." In biblical times, what was a widow? It was a mother without a husband. And what was an orphan? It was a child without a father. Sounds a lot like the clients that we see at our pregnancy centers, doesn't it? Why not invite the pastor to lead his congregation in partnering with your pregnancy center in the important work that is pure and faultless in God's sight? Then share some specific and tangible needs that your clients have, the kinds of support that they need that can help them support their life decision. Heck, you can even invite him to your center. And if he can't come, find a way to bring your center's clients and success stories to him so that he can taste and see that your work is good. Remember, you're challenging him to live up to the life choice side of his pro-choice worldview. That means he should be just as committed to eliminating any barriers a woman may face that would stop her from living out the choice for life as he is to make sure that she has access to abortion. What you'll find is that life is contagious. Once he sees the impact of his involvement on real women, men, and babies, I believe that the abortion side of his pro-choice worldview will start to wither. You see, I grew up in the Black church, and one thing I remember well is folks wanting to testify in church. Now just imagine a client testifying to how the pastor and the church helped her at her point of need. And imagine her telling her story while she's holding her child in her arms. And better yet, while the father of her child is holding her in his arms after they've been united in marriage. If abortion and birth are equally God-honoring, then there should also be testimonies in church from women that the pastor has helped have an abortion. But I don't think you'll see those. Death of the innocent is not contagious. It's crippling to a person's physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19 says, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life, that you and your offspring may live. You know, what you're doing is making this passage come alive for a pastor who desperately needs it to speak to him. Pretty cool stuff. And of course, that's what being pro-life is all about. Until next time, may God bless you daily as you serve him faithfully.